you know.
Yeah, no, I do.
You gotta have that.
Yeah, well, my kid doesn't like that because it's like smacks of, imperialism, British
Oh,
imperialist pith
yes, it
helmet
does.
type
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
But
The shorts and the fifth helmet.
Most
Oh,
at
yes.
this point.
yeah, all right. I believe we are now live on YouTube. So welcome to the Instant Shakespeare Company reading of Edward III. My name is Paul Sugarman. I'm the founder of the Instant Shakespeare Company, and this is now our second in our history cycle that started yesterday with Edward II.
Yes.
And we had the real cliffhanger of all that Edward was doing. Prince Edward, who is now Edward III, who is now not only fully grown, but also has a son who is of age to go to battle, which is a lot of what we know about. And he's the one who will then who will then be the father of Richard II. So, anyways, so yeah, this is we're very excited about this series. Stephen Brown sort of masterminded it and put this together. And so we've gone from Marlowe to what I believe is Shakespeare, and what more and more scholars have accepted as being mostly Shakespeare, but was published as anonymous, which is the reign of Edward III. And Mark Gehring is the playmaster for this, so I will turn things over to you, Mark.
I just want to say I've kind of changed my mind. I think it may be entirely by Shakespeare. Thanks all who are participating, and I never have said this before on Zoom. Break a leg.
Great. So do we want to, Mark, I don't know, I forget it, can't even remember what we did yesterday. Do we want to introduce who's going to be each person?
Oh, we forgot to do that.
Well, I mean, I like that we just jumped into it yesterday.
Well, we do have our names on the screen anyway, but...
Yeah.
All right. Well, then, just a reminder before we dive in for the Instant Shakespeare readings, we have our videos on while we're in the scene, and then stop them and mute ourselves when we're not in the scene. And so everybody have fun with. Let me actually. I want to read the whole title page for this this quarto thing now that I've got it up here, because it is sort of fun to hear. Oh no, I don't have it here, do I? The reign, there it is. The reign of King Edward III, as it has been sundry times played about the city of London, printed for Cuthbert Burby, 1596.
Robert of Artois, banished though thou be from France, thy native country, yet with us thou shalt retain as great a seigneury, for we create thee Earl of Richmond here. And now go forwards with our pedigree. Who next succeeded Philip le Beau?
3 sons of his, which all successfully did sit upon their father's regal throne, yet died and left no issue of their loins.
Ah, but was my mother sister unto those?
Oh, she was, my lord, and only Isabel, who was all the daughters that this Philip had, whom afterwards your father took to wife. And from the fragrant garden of her womb, your gracious self, the flowers of Europe's hope, derived is inherited to France, but not the rancor of rebellious minds. When thus the lineage of Beau was out, the French obscured your mother's privilege. And though she were the next of blood, proclaimed John of the house of Valois now their king. The reason was, they say, the realm of France, replete with princes of great parentage, doth not admit a governor to rule, except he be descended of the male. And that's the special ground of their contempt, wherein they study to exclude your grace.
Oh, but they shall find that forged ground of theirs to be but dusty heaps of brittle sand.
Well, perhaps it will be thought a heinous thing that I, a Frenchman, should discover this. By heaven, I call to record of my vows, it is not hate nor any private wrong, but love unto my country and the right provokes my tongue thus lavish in report. You are the lineal watchmen of our peace, and John of Valois indirectly climbs. What then should subjects but embrace their king? wherein may our duty more be seen, in striving to rebate the tyrant's pride, and place the true shepherd of our commonwealth.
This counsel, Artois, like to fruitful showers, hath added growth unto my dignity. And by the fiery vigor of thy words, hot courage is engendered in my breast, which heretofore was racked in ignorance, but now doth mount with golden wings of fame, and will approve fair Isabel's descent, able to yoke their stubborn necks with steel that spurn against my sovereignty in France. Ah, a messenger. Lord Audley, know from whence?
The Duke of Lorraine, having crossed the seas, entreats he may have conference with your highness.
Admit him, lords, that we may hear the news. Say, Duke of Lorraine, wherefore art thou come?
The most renowned Prince, King John of France, doth greet thee, Edward, and by me commands that for so much as by his liberal gift the Gaian dukedom is entailed to thee, thou do him lowly homage for the same, and for that purpose here I summon thee repair to France within these 40 days, that there, according as the custom is, thou mayst be sworn true liegeman to our king, or else thy title in that province dies, and he himself will repossess the place.
See how occasion laughs me in the face. No sooner minded to prepare for France, but straight I am invited, nay, with threats upon a penalty enjoined to come. 'Twere but a childish part to say him nay. Lorraine, return this answer to thy lord. I mean to visit him as he requests, but how? Not servilely disposed to bend, but like a conqueror to make him bow. His lame, unpolished shifts are come to light, and truth hath pulled the vizard from his face that set a gloss upon his arrogance. Dare he command a fealty in me? Tell him the crown that he usurps is mine, and where he sets his foot he ought to kneel. 'Tis not a petty dukedom that I claim, but all the whole dominions of the realm, which if with grudging he refuse to yield, I'll take away those borrowed plumes of his and send him naked to the wilderness.
Then, Edward, here in spite of all thy lords, I do pronounce defiance to thy face.
Defiance, Frenchman? We rebound it back, even to the bottom of thy master's throat. And be it spoke with reverence of the king, my gracious father, and these other lords, I hold thy message but as scurrilous, and him that sent thee like the lazy drone crept up by stealth unto the eagle's nest, from whence we'll shake him with so rough a storm as others shall be warned by his harm.
Bid him leave of the lion's case he wears, lest meeting with the lion in the field he chance to tear him piecemeal for his pride.
The soundest counsel I can give his grace is to surrender ere he be constrained. A voluntary mischief hath less scorn than when reproach with violence is borne.
Regenerate traitor, viper to the place, where thou wast fostered in thine infancy, bearest thou part of this conspiracy?
Oh, Lorraine, behold the sharpness of this steel. Fervent desire that sits against my heart is far more thorny pricking than this blade, that with the nightingale I shall be scarred as oft as I dispose myself to rest until my colors be displayed in France. This is thy final answer, so be gone.
It is not that, nor any English brave afflicts me so, as doth his poison and view that is most false should most of all be true.
Now, Lord, our fleeting bark is under sail, our gage is thrown, and war is soon begun, but not so quickly brought unto an end. But wherefore comes Sir William Montague? How stands the league between the Scot and us?
Cracked and deserved, my renowned lord. The treacherous king no sooner was informed of your withdrawing of your army back, but straight forgetting his former oath, he made invasion on the bordering towns. Barwick is won, Newcastle spoiled and lost, and now the tyrant hath begirt with siege the castle of Roxborough, where, enclosed, The Countess Salisbury is like to perish.
It is thy daughter, Warwick, is it not? Whose husband hath in Brittany served so long about the planting of Lord Mountford there?
It is, my lord.
Ignoble David, hast thou none to grieve but silly ladies with thy threatening arms? But I will make you shrink your snaily horns. First, therefore, Audley, this shall be thy charge. Go levy footmen for our wars in France, and Ned, take muster of our men-at-arms. In every shire elect a several band. Let them be soldiers of a lusty spirit, such as dread nothing but dishonor's blot. Be wary, therefore, since we do commence a famous war, and with so mighty a nation. Darby, be thou ambassador for us, unto our father-in-law, the Earl of Hainault. Make him acquainted with our enterprise, and likewise will him with our own allies that are in Flanders, to solicit too the Emperor of Allemagne in our name. Myself, whilst you are jointly thus employed, will with these forces that I have at hand march, and once more repulse the traitorous Scot. But, sirs, be resolute. We shall have wars on every side. And Ned, thou must begin how to forget thy study and thy books, and thy shoulders to an armor's weight.
As cheerful sounding to my youthful spleen this tumult is of war's increasing broils, as at the coronation of a king. The joyful clamors of the people are when Ave Caesar they pronounce aloud. Within this school of honor I shall learn, either to sacrifice my foes to death, or in a rightful quarrel spend my breath. Then cheerfully forward each a several way. In great affairs 'tis not to use delay.
Act 2.
Alas, how much in vain my poor eyes gaze for succor that my sovereign should send. Cousin Montague, I fear thou wants thy lively spirit sharply to solicit with vehement suit the king in my behalf. Thou dost not tell him what a grief it is to be the scornful captive of a Scot, either to be wooed with broad untuned oaths or forced by rough insulting barbarism. Thou dost not tell him, if he here prevail, how much they will deride us in the north, and in their wild, uncivil, skipping gigs, bray forth their conquest and our overthrow, even in the barren, bleak, and fruitless air. I must withdraw. The everlasting foe comes to the wall. I'll closely step aside and list their babble, blunt and full of pride.
My lord Lorraine, to our brother of France, commend us the man of Christendom that we must reverence and entirely love. Touching your embassage, return and say that we with England will not parley, nor never make fair weather or take truce, but burn their neighbor towns and so persist with eager rods beyond their city York, and never shall our boomy riders rest, nor rust in canker have the time to eat their light-born snaffles, nor their nimble spur, nor lay aside their jacks of gimmeled mail, nor hang their staves of green Scottish ash in peaceful wise upon their city walls, nor from their button tawny leather belts dismiss their biting vineyards. Tell your king, cry out enough, spare England now for pity. Farewell, and tell him that you leave us here. Before this castle, say you came from us, even when we had that yielded to our hands.
I take my leave, and fairly will return your acceptable greetings to my king.
Now, Douglas, to our former task again for the division of this certain spoil.
My liege, I crave the lady and no more.
Nay, softly, sir. First, I must make my choice, and first I do bespeak her for myself.
Why then, my liege, let me enjoy her jewels.
Those are her own, still liable to her, and who inherits her hath those with all. Who comes here?
My liege, as we were pricking on the hills to fetch in booty marching hitherward, we might descry a mighty host of men. The sun reflecting on the armour showed a field of plate. would your fix advanced? I think your highness speedily herein, an easy march within 4 hours will bring the hindmost rank unto this place, my liege.
This lodge, it is the King of England.
Give me my man. Saddle my bonny back black.
Meanst thou to fight, Douglas? We are too weak.
I know it well, my liege, and therefore flee.
My lords of Scotland, will you stay and drink?
She mocks at us, Douglas. I cannot endure it.
Say, good my lord, which is he must have the lady, and which her jewels? I am sure, my lords, ye will not hence till you have shared the spoils.
She heard the messenger and heard our talk, and now that comfort makes her scorn at us.
Arm, my good lord, or we are all surprised. After the French ambassador, my liege, and tell him that you dare not ride to York. Excuse it that your bonny horse is lame.
She heard that too. Intolerable grief. Woman, farewell, although I do not stay.
'Tis not for fear, and yet you run away. Oh, happy comfort, welcome to our house. The confident and boisterous boasting Scot that swore before my walls they would not back for all the armed power of this land, with faceless fear that ever turns his back, turned hence against the blasting northeast wind, upon the bare report and name of arms. Oh, summer's day, see where my cousin comes.
How fares my hunt? We are not Scots. Why do you shut your gates against your friends?
Well, may I give a welcome, cousin, to thee, for thou comest well to chase my foes from hence.
The king himself is come in person hither. Hear and descend and gratulate his highness.
How may I entertain his majesty to shew my duty and his dignity?
Oh, what are the stealing foxes fled and gone before we could uncouple at their heels?
They are, my liege, but with a cheerful cry, hot hounds and hardy chase them at the heels.
Oh, this is the Countess, Warwick, is it not?
Even she, liege, whose beauty tyrants fear as a May blossom with pernicious winds hath sullied, withered, overcast, and done.
Hath she been fairer, Warwick, than she is?
My gracious king, fair is she not at all, if that herself were by to stain herself, as I have seen her when she was herself.
What strange enchantment lurked in those her eyes, when they excelled this excellence they have. But now her dim decline hath power to draw my subject eyes from piercing majesty to gaze on her with doting admiration.
In duty lower than the ground I kneel, and for my dull knees bow my feeling heart, to witness my obedience to your highness, with many millions of a subject's thanks for this your royal presence, whose approach hath driven war and danger from my gate.
Oh, lady, stand up. I come to bring thee peace. However, thereby I have purchased war.
No war to you, my liege. The Scots are gone, and gallop home towards Scotland with their hate.
Lest yielding here I pine in shameful love. Come, we'll pursue the Scots. Artois, away.
A little while, my gracious sovereign, stay, and let the power of a mighty king honor our roof. My husband is in the wars. When he shall hear it, will triumph for joy. Then, dear my liege, now niggard not thy state, being at the wall, enter our homely gate.
Pardon me, Countess, I will come no near. I dreamed tonight of treason, and I fear.
Far from this place let ugly treason lie.
No farther off than her conspiring eye, which shoots infected poison in my heart, beyond repulse of wit or cure or art. Now in the sun alone it doth not lie, with light to take light from a mortal eye. For here, 2 day stars that mine eyes would see more than the sun steals mine own light from me. Contemplative desire to be in contemplation that may master thee. Warwick, Artois, to horse, and let's away.
What might I speak to make my sovereign stay?
What needs a tongue to speak of speaking I, that more persuades than winning oratory?
Let not thy presence, like the April sun, flatter our earth and suddenly be done. More happy do not make our outward wall than thou wilt grace our inner house withal. Our house, my liege, is like a country swain, whose habit rude and manners blunt and plain presageth not, yet inly beautified, with bounties, riches, and fair hidden pride. For where the golden ore doth buried lie, the ground, undecked with nature's tapestry, seems barren, sere, unfertile, fructless, dry. And where the upper turf of earth doth boast his pied perfumes and party-colored coat, delve there and find this issue and their pride, to spring from order and corruption's side. But to make up my all too long compare, these ragged walls no testimony are. What is within, but like a cloak doth hide from weather's waste the under-garnished pride. More gracious than my terms can let thee be, entreat thyself to stay a while with me.
As wise as fair. Oh, what fond fit can be heard when wisdom keeps the gate as beauty's guard? Countess, albeit my business urgeth me, it shall attend while I attend on thee. Come on, my lords, here will I host tonight.
Act 2.
I might perceive his eye in her eye lost, his care to drink her sweet tongue's utterance, and changing passion like in constant clouds, rack upon the carriage of the winds, increase and die in his disturbed cheeks. Lo, when she blushed, even then did he look pale, as if her cheeks by some enchanted power attracted had the cherry blood from his. Anon with reverent fear, when she grew pale, his cheek put on their scarlet ornaments, but no more like her orient all red than brick to coral or live things to dead. Why did ye thus then counterfeit her looks? If she did blush, 'twas tender modest shame, being in the sacred presence of a king. If he did blush, 'twas red immodest shame, to wail his eyes and miss being a king. She looked pale, 'twas silly woman's fear, to bear herself in presence of a king. If he looked pale, it was with guilty fear, to dote and miss being a mighty king. In Scottish wars, farewell. I fear it will prove a lingering English siege of peevish love. Here comes his highness walking all alone.
Oh, she is grown more fairer far since I came hither. Her voice more silvery every word than other, her wit more fluent. What a strange discourse unfolded she of David and his Scots. Even thus, quoth she, he spake, and then spoke broad, with epithets and accents of the Scot, but somewhat better than the Scot could speak. And thus, quoth she, and answered then herself, for who could speak like her? But she herself breathes from the wall an angel's note from heaven of sweet defiance to her barbarous foes. When she would talk of peace, methinks her tongue commanded war to prison. When of war, it wakened Caesar from his Roman grave to hear war beautified by her discourse. Oh, wisdom is foolishness but in her tongue, beauty a slander, but in her face there is no summer, but in her cheerful looks, nor frosty winter, but in her disdain. I cannot blame the Scots that did besiege her, for she is all the treasure of our land. But call them cowards that they run away, having so rich and fair a cause to stay. Art thou there, Lodwick? Give me ink and paper.
I will, my liege.
And bid the lords hold on their play at chess, for we will walk and meditate alone.
I will, my sovereign.
This fellow is well read in poetry, and hath a lusty and persuasive spirit. I will acquaint him with my passion, which he shall shadow with a veil of lawn, through which the queen of beauty's queen shall see herself the ground of my infirmity. Hast thou pen, ink, and paper, Lodwick?
Ready, my liege.
Then in the summer arbor sit by me. Make it our council house or cabinet, since green our thoughts, green be the convecticle where we will ease us by disburdening them. Now, Lodwick, invocate some golden muse to bring thee hither an enchanted pen that may for sighs set down true sighs indeed. Talking of grief, to make thee ready groan, and when thou writest of tears, encouch the word before and after with such sweet laments that it may raise drops in a Tartar's eye, and make a flint heart Scythian pitiful, for so much moving hath a poet's pen. Then, if thou be a poet, move thou so, and be enriched by thy sovereign's love. For if the touch of sweet concordant strings could force attendance in the ears of hell, how much more shall the strains of poets' wit beguile and ravish soft and humane minds?
To whom, my lord, shall I direct my style?
To one that shames the fair and sots the wise, whose body is an abstract or a brief, contains each general virtue in the world. Better than beautiful thou must begin, devised for fair, a fairer word than fair, and every ornament that thou wouldst praise, fly it a pitch above the soar of praise. For flattery, fear thou not to be convicted, for were thy admiration 10 times more, 10 times 10,000 more, the worth exceeds of that thou art to praise thy praises worth. Begin. I will to contemplate the while. Forget not to set down how passionate, how heartsick, and how full of languishment her beauty makes me.
Write I to a woman?
What beauty else could triumph on me? Or who but woman do our lay loves greet? What, think'st thou I bid thee praise a horse?
Of what condition or estate she is? It were requisite that I should know, my lord.
Of such estate that hers is as a throne, and my estate the footstool where she treads. Then mayest thou judge what her condition is by the proportion of her mightiness. Write on, while I peruse her in my thoughts. Her music to voice, her voice to music, or the nightingale? To music every summer leaping swain compares his sunburnt lover when she speaks. And why should I speak of the nightingale? The nightingale sings of adulterate wrong, and that, compared, is too satirical. For sin, though sin would not be so esteemed, but rather virtue sin, virtue deemed. Aha! Her hair, fair softer than a silkworm's twist, like to a flattering glass, doth make more fair the yellow amber. Ooh, like a flattering glass. Comes in too soon. For writing of her eyes, I'll say that like a glass they catch the sun, and thence the hot reflection doth rebound against my breast and burns my heart within. Oh, what a world of descant makes my soul upon this voluntary ground of love. Oh, come, Lodwick, hast thou turned thy ink to gold? If not, write but in letters capital my mistress's name, and it will gild thy paper. Read, Lord, read. Fill thou the empty hollows of mine ears with the sweet hearing of thy poetry.
I have not to a period brought her praise.
Her praise is as my love, both infinite, which apprehends such violent extremes that they disdain an ending period. Oh, her beauty hath no match but my affection, hers more than most, mine most, and more than more, hers more to praise than tell the sea by drops, nay, more than drop, the massy earth by sands, and sand by sand, print them in memory. Then wherefore talkst thou of a period to that which craves unended admiration? Read, let us hear.
More fair and chaste than is the queen of shades.
Oh, no, that line hath two faults, gross and palpable.
Oh.
Comparest thou her to the pale queen of night, who being set in dark seems therefore light? What is she when the sun lifts up his head, but like a a fading taper, dim and dead, my love, shall brave the eye of heaven at noon, and being unmasked, outshine the golden sun.
What is the other fault, my sovereign lord?
Read over the line again.
More fair and chaste.
I did not bid talk thee of chastity, to ransack so the treasure of her mind. For I had rather have her chaste than chaste. Out with the moonline, I'll have none of it. And let me have her likened to the sun. Say she hath thrice more splendor than the sun, that her perfections emulates the sun, that she breeds sweets as plenteous as the sun, that she doth thaw cold winter like the sun, that she doth cheer fresh summer like the sun, that she doth dazzle gazers as the sun, and in this application to the sun, bid her be free and general as the sun, who smiles upon the basest weed that grows as lovingly as on the fragrant rose. Let's see what follows that same moonlight line.
More fair and chaste than is the lover of shades, more bold in constancy.
In constancy than who?
Than Judith was.
Oh, monstrous line. Put in next a sword, and I shall woo her to cut off my head. Blot, blot, good Lodvik. Let's hear the next.
Well, there's all that yet is done.
Then I thank thee, then. Thou hast done little ill, but what is done is passing ill. No, let the captain talk of boisterous war, the prisoner of immured dark constraint, the sick man best sets down the pangs of death, the man that starves, the sweetness of a feast, the frozen soul, the benefit of fire, and every grief his happy opposite. Love cannot sound well, but in lovers' tongues. Give me the pen and paper, I will write. Damn, but soft. Here comes the treasurer of my spirit. Lodvik, thou knowest not how to draw a bottle. These wings, these flankers, and these squadrons argue in thee defective discipline. Thou shouldst have placed this here, and this other here.
Pardon my boldness, my thrice gracious lords. Let my intrusion here be called my duty, that comes to see my sovereign, how he fares.
Go, draw the same. I'll tell thee in what form.
I go.
Sorry I am to see my liege so sad. What may thy subject do to drive from thee thy gloomy consort, Salome melancholy?
Lady, I am blunt, and cannot strew the flowers of solace in a ground of shame. Since I came hither, Countess, I am wronged.
Oh, God forbid that in any house should think my sovereign wrong. Thrice gentle king, acquaint me with your cause of discontent.
Well, how near then shall I be to remedy?
As near, my liege, as all my woman's power can pawn itself to buy thy remedy.
If thou speakest true, then have I my redress. Engage thy power to redeem my joys, and I am joyful. Countess, else I die.
I will, my liege.
Swear, Countess, that thou wilt.
By heaven, I will.
Then take thyself a little way aside, and tell thyself, a king doth dote on thee, and say that within thy power doth lie to make him happy, and that thou hast sworn to give him all the joy within thy power. Do this, and tell me when I shall be happy.
All this is done, my thrice dead sovereign. That power of love that I have power to give, thou hast with all devout obedience. Employ me how thou wilt in proof thereof.
Thou hearest me say that I do dote on thee?
If on my beauty, take it if thou canst, though little, I do prize it 10 times less. If on my virtue, take it if thou canst, for virtue's store by giving doth augment. Be on it what it will that I can give, and thou canst take away, inherit it.
Well, it is thy beauty that I would enjoy.
Oh, it were Oh, were it painted, I would wipe it off and dispossess myself to give it thee. But sovereign, it is soldered to my life. Take one and both, for like an humble shadow, it haunts the sunshine of my summer's life.
But thou mayest leave it me to sport withal.
As easy may my intellectual soul be lent away, and yet my body live, as lend my body, palace to my soul, away from her, and yet retain my soul. My body is her bower, her court, her abbey, and she an angel, pure, divine, unspotted. If I should leave her house, my lord, to thee, I kill my poor soul, and my poor soul, me.
But didst thou not swear to give me what I would?
I did, my liege. So what you would, I could.
Well, I wish no more of thee than thou mayst give. Nor beg I do not, rather I buy, that is thy love, and for that love of thine in rich exchange, I tender to thee mine.
But that your lips were sacred, my lord, you would profane the holy name of love. That love you offer me, you cannot give. For Caesar owes that tribute to his queen. That love you beg of me, I cannot give. For Sarah owes that duty to her lord. He that doth clip or counterfeit your stamp shall die, my lord. And will your sacred self commit high treason against the King of heaven? To stamp his image in forbidden metal, forgetting your allegiance and your oath? In violating marriage sacred law, you break a greater honor than yourself. To be a king is of a younger house than to be married. Your progenitor, sole reigning Adam on the universe, by God was honored for a married man, but not by him anointed for a king. It is a penalty to break your statutes, though not enacted with your highness' hand. How much more to infringe the holy act made by the mouth of God, sealed with his hand? I know my sovereign, in my husband's love, who now doth loyal service in his wars, doth but so try the wife of Salisbury, whither she will hear a wanton's tale or no, lest being therein guilty be by my stay. From that, not my liege, I turn away.
Whether is her beauty by her words divine, or are her words sweet chaplains to her beauty? Like as the wind doth beautify a sail, and as a sail becomes the unseen wind, so do her words, her beauty, words. Oh, that I were a honey-gathering bee to bear the comb of virtue from this flower, and not a poison-sucking, envious spider to turn the juice I take to deadly venom. Religion is austere, and beauty gentle, too strict a guardian for so fair a ward. Oh, that she were as is the air to me. Why, so she is, for when I would embrace her, this do I, and catch nothing but myself. I must enjoy her, for I cannot bear with reason and reproof fond love away. But here comes her father. I will work with him to bear my colors in this field of love.
How is it that my sovereign is so sad? May I with pardon know your highness' grief, and that my old endeavor will remove it? It shall not cumber long, your majesty.
A kind and voluntary gift thou profferest, that I was forward to have begged of thee. But oh, thou world, great nurse of flattery, why dost thou tip men's tongues with golden words, and pays their deeds with weight of heavy lead, that fair performance cannot follow promise? Oh, that a man might hold the heart's close book and choke the lavish tongue when it doth utter the breath of falsehood not charactered there.
Far be it from the honor of my age that I should owe bright gold and render lead. Age is a cynic, not a flatterer. I say again that if I knew your grief, and that by me it may be lessened, my proper harm should buy your highness good. These are the vulgar tenders of false men that never pay the duty of their words.
Thou wilt not stick to swear what thou hast said, but when thou knowest my grief's condition, this rash, disgorged vomit of thy word, thou wilt eat up again and leave me helpless.
By heaven, I will not, though your majesty did bid me run upon your sword and die.
Say that my grief is no way medicinable, but by the loss and bruising of thine honor.
If nothing but that loss may vantage you, I would accomplish that loss my vantage too.
Think'st that thou canst answer thy oath again?
I cannot, nor I would not if I could.
But if thou dost, what shall I say to thee?
What may be said to any perjured villain that break the sacred warrant of an oath?
What wilt thou say to one that breaks an oath?
That he hath broke his faith with God and man, and from them both stands excommunicate.
What office were it to suggest a man to break a lawful and religious vow?
An office for the devil, not for man.
That devil's office must thou do for me, or break thy oath, or cancel all the bonds of love and duty twixt thyself and me. And therefore, Warwick, if thou art thyself, the lord and master of thy word and oath, go to thy daughter, and in my behalf command her, woo her, win her, anyways, to be my mistress and my secret love. I will not stand to hear make reply. Thy oath break hers, or let thy sovereign die.
Oh, doting king, or detestable office, well may I tempt myself to wrong myself, when he hath sworn me by the name of God to break a vow made by the name of God. What if I swear by this my right hand of mine, to cut this right hand of the better way were to profane the idol than to confound it? But neither will I do. I'll keep mine oath, and to mine daughter make a recantation of all the virtue I have preached to her. I'll say she must forget her husband, Salisbury, if she remember to embrace the king. I'll say an oath may easily be broken, but not so easily pardoned being broken. I'll say it is true charity to love, but not true love to be so charitable. I'll say his greatness may bear out the shame, but not his kingdom can buy out the sin. I'll say it is my duty to persuade, but not her honesty to give consent. See where she comes. Was never father had against his child an embassage so bad.
My lord and father, I have sought for you. My mother and the peers importune you to keep in presence of his majesty, and do your best to make his highness merry.
How shall I enter in this gracious errand? I must not call her child, for where is the father that will in such a suit seduce his child? Then, wife of Salisbury, shall I so begin? No, he's my friend. And where is found the friend that will do friendship such endamagement? Neither my daughter nor my dear friend's wife. I am not Warwick, as thou thinkst I am, but an attorney from the court of hell, that thus have housed my spirit in his form, to do a message to thee from the king. The mighty king of England dotes on thee. He that hath power to take away thy life hath power to take thy honor, then consent to pawn thine honor rather than thy life. Honor is oft lost and not gone again, but life once gone hath no recovery. The sun that withers hay doth nourish grass. The king that would disdain thee will advance thee. The poets write that great Achilles' spear could heal the wound it made. The moral is, what mighty men misdo, they can amend. The lion doth become his bloody jaws, and grace his foragement by being mild, when vassal fear lies trembling at his feet. The king will in his glory hide thy shame, and those that gaze on him to find out thee will lose their eyesight looking in the sun. What can one drop of poison harm the sea, whose huge vastatures can digest the ill and make it lose his operation? The king's great name will temper their misdeeds and give the bitter portion of reproach a sugared, sweet, and most delicious taste. Besides, it is no harm to do the thing which without shame could not be left undone. Thus have I in his majesty's behalf apparelled sin in virtuous sentences, and dwell upon thy answer in his suit.
Unnatural besiege, woe me unhappy to have escaped the danger of my foes, and to be 10 times worse injured by friends. Hath he no means to stain my honest blood, but to corrupt the author of my blood, to be his scandalous and vile solicitor? No marvel through the branches be then infected, when poison hath encompassed the root. No marvel though the leprous infant die, when the stern dame envenometh the dug. Why then give sin a passport to offend, and youth the dangerous reign of liberty? Blot out the strict forbidding of the law, and cancel every canon that prescribes a shame for shame, or penance for offense. No, let me die, if his too boisterous will have it so, before I will consent to be an actor in his graceless lust.
But now thou speakest as I would have thee speak. And mark how I unsay my words again. An honorable grave is more esteemed than the polluted closet of a king. The greater man, the greater is the thing, be it good or bad, that he shall undertake. An unreputed mote flying in the sun presents a greater substance than it is. The freshest summer's day doth soon taint the loathed carrion that it seems to kiss. Deep are the blows made with a mighty axe, that sin doth 10 times aggravate itself that is committed in a holy place. An evil done by authority is sin and subordination. Deck an ape in tissue, and the beauty of the robe adds but the greater scorn unto the beast. A spacious field of reasons could I urge between his gloomy daughter and thy shame, that a poison shows worst in a golden cup. Dark night seems darker by the lightning flash. Lilies that fester smell far worse than weeds. And every glory that inclines to sin, the shame is treble by the opposite. So leave I with my blessing in thy bosom, which then convert to a most heavy curse, when thou convertest from honor's golden name to the black faction of bed blotting shame.
I'll follow thee. And when my mind turns so, my body sink my soul in endless woe.
2.
Thrice noble Audley, well encountered here. How is it with our sovereign and his peers?
'Tis full a fortnight since I saw his highness. What time he sent me forth to muster men, which I accordingly have done, and bring them hither in fair array, before his majesty. What news, my lord of Derby, from the emperor?
As good as we desire. The emperor hath yielded to his highness friendly aid, and makes our king lieutenant general in all his lands and large dominions, then via for the spacious bounds of France.
What doth his highness leap to hear these news?
I have not yet found time to open them. The king is in his closet, malcontent for what, I know not, but he gave in charge till after dinner none should interrupt him. The Countess Salisbury and her father Warwick, Artois, and all look underneath the brows.
Undoubtedly, then, something is amiss.
The trumpets sound. The king is now abroad.
Here comes his highness.
Befall my sovereign all my sovereign's wish.
Ah, that thou wert a witch to make it so.
The emperor greeteth you,
Thou would it with a countess.
and hath accorded to your highness suit.
No, thou liest, she has not. But I would she had.
All love and duty to my lord the king.
Well, all but one is none. What news with you?
I have, my liege, levied those horse and foot according as your charge, and brought them hither.
Then let those foot trudge hence upon the horse, according to our discharge, and be gone. Darby, I'll look upon the countess's mind anon.
The countess mind, my liege.
I mean the emperor. Leave me alone.
What is his mind?
Let's leave him to his humor.
Thus from the heart's abundance speaks the tongue, countess, for emperor. And indeed, why not? She is as imperator over me, and I to her am as a kneeling vassal that observes the pleasure or displeasure of her eye. Ah, what says the more than Cleopatra's match to Caesar now?
Then yes, my liege, knight, she will resolve, your majesty.
What drum is this that thunders forth this march to start the tender Cupid in my bosom? Oh, poor sheepskin, how it brawls with them that beateth it. Go break the thundering parchment bottom out, and I will teach it to conduct sweet lines unto the bosom of a heavenly nymph. For I will use it as my writing paper, and to reduce him from a scolding drum to be the herald and dear counsel bearer betwixt a goddess and a mighty king. Go, bid the drummer learn to touch the lute, or hang him in the braces of his drum. For now, we will think it an incivil thing to trouble heaven with such harsh resounds. Away. The quarrel that I have requires no arms, but these of mine, and these shall meet my foe in a deep march of penetrable groans. My eyes shall be my arrows, and my sighs shall serve me as a vantage of the wind to whirl away my sweetest artillery. Ah, but alas, she wins the son of me, for that is she herself. And thence it comes that poets terms the wanton warrior blind. But love hath eyes as judgment to his steps, till too much loved glory dazzles them. How now?
My liege, the drum that strokes the lusty march stands with Prince Edward, your thrice valiant son.
I see, the boy. Oh, how his mother's face, modeled in his, corrects my strayed desire, and rates my heart and chides my thievish eye, who being rich enough in seeing her, yet seeks elsewhere. And basest theft is that which cannot cloak itself on poverty. Now, boy, what news?
I have assembled, my dear lord and father, the choicest buds of all our English blood for our affairs to France, and here we come to take direction from your majesty.
Still do I see in him delineate his mother's visage. Those his eyes are hers, who looking wistfully on me make me blush, for faults against themselves give evidence. Lust is fire, and men, like lanterns, show light lust within themselves, even through themselves. Away, loose silks of wavering vanity. Shall the large limit of fair Brittany be by me the overthrown? And shall I not master this little mansion of myself? Give me an armor of eternal steel. I go to conquer kings. And shall I not then subdue myself and be my enemy's friend? It must not be. Come, boy, forward, advance. Let's with our colors sweet the air of France.
My liege, the countess with a smiling cheer desires access to your majesty.
Oh, why, there it goes. The very smile of hers hath ransomed captive France and set the king, the Dauphin, and his peers at liberty. Go, leave me, Ned, and revel with thy friends. Thy mother is but black, and thou, like her, dost put in my mind how foul she is. Go fetch the countess hither in my hand, and let her chase away these winter clouds. For she gives beauty both to heaven and earth. The sin is more to hack and hew poor men than to embrace in an unlawful bed. The register of all rarities since leathern Adam till his youngest hour. Go, Lodvig, put thy hand into thy purse. Play, spend, give, riot, waste, do what thou wilt. So thou wilt hence a while and leave me here. Now, my soul's playfellow, art thou come to speak the more than heavenly word of yea to my objection in thy beauteous love?
My father on his blessing hath commanded
That thou shalt yield to me.
Aye, dear my liege, your due.
And that, my dearest love, can be no less than right for right, and render love for love.
Then wrong for wrong, and endless hate for hate. But sith I see your majesty so bent, that my unwillingness, my husband's love, your high estate, nor no respect respected, can be my help, but that your mightiness will overbear and awe these dear regards. I bind my discontent to my content, and what I would not, I'll compel I will, provided that yourself remove those lets that stand between your highness' love and mine.
Name them, fair countess, and by heaven I will.
It is their lives that stand between our love, that I would have choked up my sovereign.
Whose lives, my lady?
My thrice loving liege, your queen and Salisbury, my wedded husband, who living have that title in our love, that we cannot bestow but by their death.
Thy opposition is beyond our law.
So is your desire. If the law can hinder you to execute the one, let it forbid you to attempt the other. I cannot think you love me, as you say, unless you do make good what you have sworn.
No more. Thy husband and the queen shall die. Fairer thou art by far than Hero was. Beardless Leander, not so strong as I. He swum an easy current for his love, but I will through a Hellespont of blood to arrive at Cestus, where my hero lies.
Nay, you'll do more. You'll make the river too with their heart bloods that keep our love asunder, of which my husband and your wife are twain.
Well, thy beauty makes them guilty of their death, and gives in evidence that they shall die, upon which verdict I, their judge, condemn them.
Perjured beauty, more corrupted judge, when to the great star chamber o'er our heads the universal sessions calls to count this packing evil, we both shall tremble for it.
What says my fair love? Is she resolute?
Resolute to be dissolute, and therefore this: keep but thy word, great king, and I am thine. Stand where thou dost, I'll part a little from thee, and see how I will yield me to thy hands. Here by my side doth hang my wedding knives. Take thou the one, and with it kill thy queen, and learn by me to find her where she lies. And with this the other I'll dispatch my love, which now lies fast asleep within my heart. When they are gone, then I'll consent to love. Sir, stir not, less vicious king, to hinder me. My resolution is more nimbler far than thy prevention can be in my rescue. And if thou stir, I strike. Therefore, stand still and hear the choice that I will put thee to. Either swear to leave thy most unholy suit, and never henceforth to solicit me, or else, by heaven, this sharp-pointed knife shall stain thy earth with that which thou wouldst stain, my poor chaste blood. Swear, Edward, swear, or I will strike and die before thee hear.
Even by that power I swear, that gives me now the power to be ashamed of myself. I never mean to part my lips again in any words that tend to such a suit. Arise, true English lady, whom our isle may better boast of than ever Rome might, of her whose ransacked treasury hath tasked the vain endeavor of so many pens. Arise, and be my fault thy honour's fame, which after ages shall enrich thee with. I am awaked from this idle dream. Warwick, my son, Derby, Artois, and Audley, brave warriors all, where are you all this while? Warwick, I make thee warden of the north. Thou, Prince of Wales, and Audley, straight to sea, scour to New Haven. Some there stay for me. Myself, Artois, and Derby will through Flanders to greet our friends there and to crave their aid. This night will scarce suffice me to discover my folly's siege against a faithful lover. For ere the sun shall gild the eastern sky, we'll wake him with our martial harmony.
Here to our navy of 1,000 sail have made a breakfast to our foe by sea. Let us encamp to wait their happy speed. Lorraine, what readiness is Edward in? How hast thou heard that he provided it of martial furniture for this exploit?
To lay aside unnecessary soothing and not to spend the time in circumstances, rooted for a certainty, my lord, that he's exceeding strongly fortified. His subjects flock as willingly to war as if unto a triumph they were led.
England was not to harbor malcontents, bloody thirsty and seditious Catalans, spendthrifts, and such a cape for nothing else but changing an alteration of the state. And it is possible that they are now so loyal in themselves.
All but the Scot, who solemnly protests, as heretofore I have informed his grace, never to sheathe his sword or take a truce.
That's the anchorage of some better hope. But on the other side, do you think what friends King Edward hath retained in Netherland, among those ever-imbibing epicures, those frothy Dutchmen, puffed with double beer, that drink and swill in every place they come, doth not a little aggravate mine ire. Besides, we hear the emperor conjoins and scolds them in his own authority. But all the mightier that their number is, the greater glory reaps the victory. Some friends have we beside drum-struck power, that stern Polonian and the warlike Dane, the king of Bohemia and of Sicily, are all become confederates with us, and as I think are marching hither apace. But soft, I hear the music of their drums, by which I guess that their approach is near.
King John of France, as league and neighborhood requires, when friends are any way distressed, I come to aid thee with my country's force.
And from great Moscow, fearful to the Turk and lofty Poland, just of hardy men I bring these servitors to fight for thee, who willingly will venture in thy cause.
Welcome, Bohemian king, and welcome all. This your great kindness I will not forget. Besides, your plentiful rewards and crowns, that from our treasury ye shall receive. There comes a hail of brand nation decked in pride, the spoil of whom will be a treble gain. And now my hope is full, my joy complete. At sea we are as puissant as the force of Agamemnon in the haven of Troy. And by land with Xerxes we compare of strength, whose soldiers drank up rivers in their thirst. Then, Bayard-like, blind overweening Ned, to reach at our imperial diadem, is either to be swallowed of the waves or hacked to pieces when thou comest ashore.
Here to the coast I have described, my lord, as I was busy in my watchful charge, the proud armada of King Edward's ships, which at the first far off when I did ken seemed as if were a grove of withered pines, but drawing near their glorious bright aspect, their streaming ensigns wrought of colored silk, like to a meadow full of sundry flowers adorns the naked bosom of the earth, Majestical the order of their course, figuring the horned circle of the moon, and on the top, gallant of the admiral, and likewise all the handmaids of his train. The arms of England and of France unite, are quartered equally by herald's art, thus tightly carried with a merry gale, they plough the ocean hitherward. Amen.
There, he already dropped the flower de luce. I hope the honey being gathered thence, he with the spider afterward approached, shall suck forth deadly venom from the leaves. But where's our navy? How are they prepared to wing themselves against this flight of ravens?
They, having knowledge brought them by the scouts, did break from anchor straight and puffed with rage. No otherwise then were their sails with wind made forth, and when the empty eagle flies to satisfy his hungry gripping maw.
This for thy news. Return unto thy bark, and if thou escape the bloody strike of war, and do survive the conflict, come again, and let us hear the manner of the fight. Mean space, my lords, 'tis best we be dispersed to several places, lest they chance to land. First you, my lord, with your Bohemian troops, shall pitch your battle on the lower hand. My eldest son, the Duke of Normandy, together with his aides of Muscovites, shall climb the higher ground with another way. Here in the middle cast betwixt you both, Philip, my youngest boy, and I will lodge. So, lords, begone and look unto your charge. You stand for France, an empire fair and large. Now tell me, Philip, what is their concept touching the challenge and that the English make?
Say, my lord, claim Edward what he can, and bring he ne'er so plain a pedigree. 'Tis you are in possession of the crown, and that's the surest point of all the law. But were it not, yet ere he should prevail, I'll make a conduit of my dearest blood, or chase those straggling upstarts home again.
Well said, young Philip. Call for bread and wine, that we may cheer our stomachs with repast, to look our foes more sternly in the face. Now is begin the heavy day at sea. Fight, Frenchmen, fight. Be like the field of bears when they defend their younglings in their caves. Stir angry Nemesis, the happy elm, that with the sulphur battles of your rage, the English fleet may be dispersed and sunk.
Father, how this echoing cannon shot, like sweet harmony, digests my cates.
Now, boy, thou hearest what thundering terror it is to buckle for a kingdom's sovereignty. The earth with giddy trembling when it shakes, or when the exhalations of the air breaks in extremity of lightning flash, afflicts not more than kings when they dispose to show the rancor of their eye-swollen hearts. Retreat is sounded. One side hath the worse. Oh, if it be the French, sweet fortune, turn, and in thy turning change the forward winds, that with advantage of our savoring sky, our men may vanquish and thither fly. My heart misgives. Say, mirror of pale death, to whom belongs the honor of this day? Relate, I pray thee, if thy breath will serve, the sad discourse of this discomfiture.
I will, my lord. My gracious sovereign, France hath ta'en the foil, and boasting at rare triumphs with success. These iron-hearted navies, when last I was reporter to your grace, both full of angry spleen, of hope and fear, hasting to meet each other in the face, at last conjoined, and by their admiral, our admiral encountered many shot. By this the other that beheld these twain give earnest penury of a further wrack, like fiery dragons took their haughty flight, and likewise meeting from their smoky wombs, sent many grim ambassadors to death. Then began the day to turn to gloomy night, and darkness did as well enclose the quick as those that were but newly reft of life. No leisure for friends to bid farewell, as if it had the hideous noise was such as each to other seemed deaf and dumb. Purple the sea, whose channel filled as fast with streaming gore that from the maimed fell, as did her gushing moisture break into the cranny clefts of the through-shot planks. Here flew ahead, dissevered from the trunk, their mangled arms and legs were tossed aloft, as when a whirlwind takes the summer dust and scatters it in the middle of the air. There might ye see the reeling vessels split and tottering sink into the ruthless floods until their lofty tops were seen no more. All shifts were tried both for defense and earth, and now the effort of valor and the force of resolution and of cowardice. We lively pictured how the one for fame, the other by compulsion laid about. Much did the non-Ilia, that brave ship, so did the black snake of Bulen, than which a bonnier vessel never yet spread sail. But all in vain. Both sun, the wind, and tide revolted all unto our foemen's side, that we perforce were fain to give them away, and they are landed. Thus my tale is done. We have untimely lost, and they have won.
And rest there nothing but with present speed to join our several forces all in one, and bid them battle ere they reign too far. Come, gentle Philip, let us hence depart. The soldier's words have burst thy father's heart.
Act 2.
Well met, my masters. Now, how now? What's the news? And wherefore are ye laden thus with stuff? What is it? What, is it quarter day that you remove and carry bag and baggage too?
Quarter day, and I am quartering pay, I fear. Have we not heard the news that flies abroad?
What news?
The French Navy is destroyed at sea, and that the English army has arrived.
What then?
What? Then quoth you? Why is it not time to fly when envy and destruction is so high?
Content thee, man, they are far enough from hence, and will be met, I warrant ye, to their cost, before they break so far into the realm.
Aye, so the grasshopper does spend the time in mirthful jollity till winter come, and then too late he would redeem his time when frozen cold hath nipped his careless head. He that no sooner will provide a cloak when he sees it doth begin to regain, may peradventure for his negligence. But thoroughly washed when he suspects it not. We that have charge and such a train as this must look in time to look for them and us, lest when we would we cannot be relieved.
Belike you then despair of ill success and think your country will be subjugate.
Cannot tell. 'Tis good to fear the worst.
You rather fight than like our natural sons forsake your loving parents in distress.
Hush! They that have already taken arms are many fearful millions in respect of that small handful of our enemies. But 'tis a rightful quarrel we must prevail. Edward is son unto our late king's sister, where John Valois is 3 degrees removed.
Besides, there goes a prophecy abroad published by one that was a friar once, whose oracles have many times proved true. And now he says, the time will shortly come, and was when as a lion roused in the west shall carry hence the fleur de luce of France. These I can tell ye, and such like surmises strike many French men cold unto the heart.
Fly, countrymen and citizens of France, sweet flowing peace, the root of happy life, is quite abandoned, and expulse the land, instead of whom ransacked constraining war sits like ravens upon your housetops, slaughter and mischief walk within your streets, and unrestrained make havoc as they pass, the form whereof even now myself beheld upon this fair mountain whence I came, for so far of as I directed mine eyes I might perceive 5 cities all on fire, cornfields and vineyards burning like an oven, and as the leaking vapor in the wind I turned but aside, likewise I might discern the poor inhabitants escape the flames, fall numberless upon the soldiers' pikes. 3 ways these dreadful ministers of wrath do tread the measures of their tragic march. Upon the right hand comes the conquering king, upon the left his hot unbridled sun, and in the midst our nation's glittering host, all which though distant yet conspire in one to have a desolation where they come. Fly, therefore, citizens, if you be wise, seek out some habitation further off. Here if you stay, your wives will be abused, your treasures shared before your weeping eyes. Shelter you yourselves, for now the storm doth rise. Away, away, methinks, I hear their drums. Ah, wretched France, I greatly fear thy fall. Thy glory shaketh like a tottering wall.
Should we take a break now?
Sounds good.
Stephen has indicated in his spreadsheet that it is a good time at this point for one.
Excellent.
2:25?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, yeah. Quick 5-minute break.
Was that a break?
I am
2:25.
loving this whole play.
For some of us, it's 7:25.
If it's 1 hour, yeah.
All right, well, for some of you in a different time zone, but 25 after, we will.
I am loving this play.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the little, all of the stuff with the, I mean, the king and Ludovic and the countess. I mean, the king and the countess. That
that scene with Ludovic was, that was
great
fun.
stuff.
Oh, Angus, tremendous fun.
Yeah, really.
That might be the most fun I've ever had in a reading.
Yeah.
And you're doing a marvelous job reading it. So. Right,
I mean, I could just see the staging of it.
Oh, yeah.
With his quills sort of scratching away and going, but no, I've only got to a period.
Well, I've only written 2 lines.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want me to do.
I mean, what was that about the sun?
Yeah.
I mean, that's slapstick comedy at the finest quality.
The first line of is like, well, there's 2 problems with it. Like,
Yeah.
what could it be? Oh my God! And the countess being like, yeah, I'll just kill your wife, I'll kill my husband, and then I'll just kill myself. Like, oh my God!
I want to do the countess. Like, I just want to do that as a 1 act. Just that.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
It's
yes.
so good.
Yes.
It is great with her wedding knives. I love this sort of thing. It's like, oh yes, we got
She
our
like
wedding
pulls
knives.
them out of her
here.
dress. It's my
Great
knives.
image. Great image. Wedding knives.
Oh,
You can picture them, can't you?
so great.
I did not prepare the knife. It just happened to be there, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
Pull that out. Yeah.
That was great. Yeah. And I mean, and it's like, because she thinks it's like, okay, well, that's great. I mean, he's not going to kill his wife, my husband, so that'll do it. And then he's even going to, okay, well, I guess I got to go here with that.
Yeah, that part where I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess we're doing this. Like, it's like a weird combination of like the Scottish play and Henry V. And I love it.
Yeah, that's
Love
so
it.
true.
Well, it is sort of.
Although
I'm sorry. What did you say?
I do find the nasty slurs on the Scots a little offensive.
There's a lot.
I think we definitely need our independence now. We've just had enough.
Yeah. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, mind you, James was kind of weird. Believed in witches. Burned
Oh,
them and did
demonology
all sorts of
and
God. Yes.
supernatural. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's also
He thought they tried to
why the
drown him with
American
a
South is the way
storm.
that it is.
Sorry, Dan.
Well, religiously speaking, he's also a big reason for why the American South is the way that it is.
Ah.
His translation of the Bible, garbage.
Yeah.
Like, well, thanks, James.
Yeah, dude
But
was.
then again, remember that most of those who signed and wrote the Declaration of Independence were actually educated by Scottish ministers.
Really?
Yep, Presbyterian ministers were one of the major sources of private education over in the States.
Interesting.
Yeah, and also, of course, it was Scottish ministers who were very essential in the forming of the Episcopal Church in the United States, which is basically the Anglican Church, but they couldn't be the Anglican Church anymore because you can't really be when you're fighting against the head of the church. So
we'll make a new church with a new name.
Yeah, and large chunks of the Constitution, the independence, was based on the Declaration of Arbroath, signed by the Scottish lords, appealing to the Pope to confirm their sovereignty over the English. The English who were trying to take them over.
But don't do that too closely around any American Catholics. They'll get ideas. Pope's not a real Christian. Come on, guys.
Yeah, this does feel like because this was, what is this, 1596?
Yeah, 1596.
And Henry V is 1599. So this feels like a test run.
Yeah.
Especially that first scene where it's, the messenger shows up, message from France, angers the king, threatens them back.
And also remember that given that the plays tended to follow the structure of the theatres where they were being staged, this was not a Globe production. This was that one in Shoreditch.
Okay.
That they dug up, which was it was very much a cross arch, the same size stage as the Globe. It was about 40 meters wide, but it had no pillars on it, so you could really do the sword fights and all the battle stuff. And all the audience was straight back with one balcony coming down both sides and the back.
Nice.
They dug it up. Was it a curtain? Was that the curtain or was that something else?
I don't know.
That was certainly the original theatre that Henry V was staged with, and Romeo and Juliet was staged with.
I think
there's a lot of discussion about how Shakespeare, because he was a great technician as well as a playwright and actor, he geared the productions to what the space he had and how that worked.
I think it was the curtain. I'm not sure.
I think it is the curtain, yeah, because they even found bits of one of the money boxes called the box office, because you used to put the penny in a clay pot as you went in.
Right.
And then when the show started, it was taken back to the box office and it was broken open and the money collected.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, I guess it's time.
All right, let's invade France, shall we?
Yeah. I did like the bit, as we all knew, that every time England invaded France, Scotland was invading because of the old alliance. Yep.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Act 3, Scene 3.
Where's the Frenchman by whose cunning guide we found the shallow of this river Somme and had direction how to pass the sea?
Here, my good lord.
And how art thou called? Tell me thy name.
Gorbin de Graille, if please your excellence.
Then, Gorbin, for the service thou hast done, we here enlarge and give thee liberty. And for recompense beside this good, thou shalt receive 500 marks in gold. I know not how we should have met our son, whom now in heart I wish I might behold.
Good news, my lord. The prince is hard at hand, and with him comes Lord Audley and the rest, whom since our landing we could never meet.
Welcome, fair prince. How hast thou sped, my son, since thy arrival on the coast of France?
Successfully, I thank the gracious heavens. Some of their strongest cities we have won, as Harslan, Lee, Crotag, and Carantine, and others wasted, leaving at our heels a wide apparent field and beaten path for solitarenes to progress in. Yet those that would submit we kindly pardoned, for who in scorn refused our proffered peace endured the penalty of sharp revenge.
Ah, France, why shouldst thou be this obstinate against the kind embracement of thy friends? How gently had we thought to touch thy breast and set our foot upon thy tender mould, but that in froward and disdainful pride, thou like a skittish and untamed colt dost start aside and strike us with thy heels. But tell me, Ned, in all thy warlike course, hast thou not seen the usurping king of France?
Yes, my good lord, and not 2 hours ago, with full 100,000 fighting men upon the one side with the river's bank, and on the other both his multitudes. I feared he would have cropped our smaller power, but haply perceiving your approach, he hath withdrawn himself to Cressy Plains, whereas it seemeth by his good array he means to bid us battle presently.
Oh, he shall be welcome. That's the thing we crave.
Edward, know that Jean, the true king of France, musing thou shouldst encroach upon his land, and in thy tyrannous proceedings slay his faithful subjects, and subvert his towns, spits in thy face, and in this manner following upbraids thee with thine arrogant intrusion. First, I condemn thee for a fugitive, a thievish pirate, and a needy mate, one that hath either no abiding place or else inhabiting some barren soil where neither herb or fruitful grain is had, dost altogether live by pilfering. Next, insomuch as thou hast infringed thy faith, broke liege and solemn covenant made with me, I hold thee for a false, pernicious wretch. And last of all, although I scorn to cope with one such inferior to myself, yet in respect thy thirst is all for gold, they labor rather to be feared than loved to satisfy thy lust in either part. Here I am come, and with me have I brought exceeding store of treasure, pearl, and coin. Leave therefore now to persecute the weak and armed, entering conflict with the armed. Let it be seen amongst other petty thefts, how thou canst win this pillage manfully.
If gall or wormwood have a pleasant taste, then is thy salutation honey sweet. But as the one hath no such property, so is the other most satirical. Yet wot how I regard thy worthless taunts. If thou have uttered them to foil my fame or dim the reputation of my birth, know that thy wolvish barking cannot hurt. If slyly to insinuate with the world and with a strumpet's artificial line, to paint thy vicious and deformed cause, be well assured the counterfeit will fade, and in the end thy foul defects be seen. But if thou didst it to provoke me on, as who should say I were but timorous, or coldly negligent, did need a spur, bethink thyself how slack I was at sea. Not since my landing I have won no towns, entered no further but upon the coast, and there have ever since securely slept. But if I have been otherwise employed, imagine, Valois, whether I intend to skirmish not for pillage, but for the crown which thou dost wear, and that I vow to have, or one of us shall fall into his grave.
Look not for cross invectives at our hands, or railing execrations of despite. Let creeping serpents hide in hollow banks, sting with their tongues. We have remorseless swords, and they shall plead for us and our affairs. Yet thus much briefly by my father's leave, as all the immodest poison of thy throat is scandalous and most notorious lies, and our pretended quarrel is truly just. So end the battle when we meet today. May either of us prosper and prevail, or luckless cursed receive eternal shame.
Oh, that needs no further question, and I know his conscience witnesseth it is my right. Therefore, Valois, say, wilt thou yet resign before the sickle's thrust into the corn, or that enkindled fury turn to flame?
Edward, I know what right thou hast in France, and ere I basely will resign my crown, this champion field shall be a pool of blood, and all our prospect as a slaughterhouse.
I that approves thee, tyrant, what thou art, no father, king, or shepherd of thy realm, but one that tears her entrails with thy hands, and like a thirsty tiger suckst her blood.
You peers of France, why do you follow him that is so prodigal to spend your lives? Whom should they follow?
Whom should they follow, aged impotent, but he that is their true-born sovereign?
Upbraid'st thou him, because within his face time hath engraved deep characters of age? Know that these grave scholars of experience, like stiff-grown oaks, will stand immovable when whirlwind quickly turns up younger trees.
Darby.
Oh no, it's
Darby.
me.
Darby.
Oh, my apologies. Didn't know that I was in this. Was ever any of thy father's house king, but thyself, before this present time? Edward's great lineage by the mother's side, 500 years hath held the scepter up. Judge then, conspirators, by this descent, which is the true-born sovereign, this or that.
I think this one's Prince Philip, guys.
I will speak. Father, arrange your battles. Prate no more. These English fain would spend their time in words that night approaching, they might escape on foot.
Lords, and my loving subjects knows the time that your intended force must bide the touch. Therefore, my friends, consider this in brief. He that you fight for is your natural king. He against whom you fight, a foreigner. He that you fight for rules in clemency, and range you with a mild and gentle bit. He against whom you fight, if he prevail, will straight enthrone himself in tyranny. Make slaves of you, and with a heavy hand curtail and curb your sweetest liberty. Then, to protect your country and your king, led by the haughty courage of your hearts, answer the number of your able hands, and we shall quickly chase these fugitives. For what this Edward but a belly god, a tender and lascivious wanton, that the other day was almost dead for love. And what I pray you is this goodly guard, such as but scant them in their chines of beef, and take away their downy feather beds, and presently they are as resty stiff as 'twere a many o'er-ridden jades. Then, Frenchmen, scorn that such should be your lords, and rather bind them in captive bonds.
Vive le roi!
Glory! God save King John
God
of
save
France!
King John of France!
Now, on this plain of Crecy, spread yourselves, and Edward, when thou darest, begin the fight.
We presently will meet thee, John of France, and English lords, let us resolve the day. Either to clear us of that scandalous crime, or be entombed in our innocence. And Ned, because this battle is the first that ever yet thou fought'st in pitched field, as ancient custom is of martialists to dub thee with the type of chivalry, in solemn manner we will give thee arms. Come, therefore, heralds, orderly, bring forth a strong attirement for my prince, my son. Edward Plantagenet, in the name of God, as with this armor I impall thy breast, so be thy noble unrelenting heart walled in with flint of matchless fortitude, that never base affections enter there. fight and be valiant. Conquer where thou comest. Now follow, lords, and do him honor too.
Edward Plantagenet, Prince of Wales, as I do set this helmet on thy head, wherewith the chamber of this brain is fenced, so may thy temples with Bellana's hand be still adorned with laurel victory. Fight and be valiant, conquer where thou comest.
Edward Plantagenet, Prince of Wales, receive this lance unto thy manly hand. Use it in fashion of a brazen pen to draw forth bloody stratagems in France, and print thy valiant deeds in honor's book. Fight and be valiant, vanquish where thou comest.
Edward Plantagenet, Prince of Wales, hold, take this target, wear it on thy arm, and may the view thereof, like Perseus' shield, astonish and transform thy gazing foes to senseless images of meager death. Fight and be valiant, conquer where thou comest.
Now once there naught but knighthood, which deferred, we leave till thou hast won it in the field.
My gracious father and ye forward peers, this honor you have done me animates and cheers my green yet scarce appearing strength with comfortable good presaging signs. No otherwise than did old Jacob's words, when as he breathed his blessings on his sons, these hallowed gifts of yours, when I profane or use them not to glory of my God, to patroness the fatherless and poor, or for the benefit of England's peace, benumb my joints, wax feeble both my arms, wither my heart, that like a sapless tree I may remain the map of infamy.
Then thus our steered battles shall be arranged, the leading of the vanguard. Ned, 'tis thine, to dignify whose lusty spirit the more we temper it with Audley's gravity. That, courage and experience joined in one, your manage may be second unto none. For the main battles, I will guide myself, and Darby in the rearward march behind. That orderly disposed and set in ray, let us go to horse, and God grant us the day.
Lorraine, say, what mean our men to fly? Our number is far greater than our foes.
The garrison of Genoa's, my lord, that came from Paris, weary with their march, grudging to be suddenly employed, no sooner in the forefront took their place, but straight retiring, so dismayed the rest, and likewise they betook themselves to flight, in which for haste to make a safe escape, more in the clustering throng are pressed to death than by the enemy 1,000-fold.
Oh, hapless fortune, let us yet essay if we can counsel some of them to stay.
Lord Audley, whilst our son is in the chase, withdraw our powers unto this little hill, and here a season let us breathe ourselves.
I will, my lord.
Oh, just dooming heaven, whose secret providence to our gross judgment is inscrutable. How are we bound to praise thy wondrous works that hast this day given way unto the right, and made the wicked stumble at themselves?
Rescue King Edward, rescue for thy son.
Rescue? Artois? What is he, prisoner? Or by violence fell beside his horse?
Neither, my lord, but narrowly beset with turning Frenchmen whom we did pursue. It is impossible that he should escape, except your highness presently descend.
Tut, let him fight. We gave him arms today, and he is laboring for a knighthood, man.
Prince, my lord, the prince, oh, succor him. He's close encompassed with a world of odds.
Then will he win a world of honor, too, if he by valor can redeem him thence. If not, what remedy? We have more sons than one to comfort our declining age.
Daniel. Audley.
Oops.
Audley.
Renowned Edward, give me leave, I pray, to lead my soldiers where I may relieve your grace's son, in danger to be slain. The snares of France, like emmets on a brank, muster about him, whilst he, lion-like, entangled in the net of their assaults, frantically rends and bites the woven toil. But all in vain, he cannot free himself.
Audley, content. I will not have a man on pain of death sent forth to succor him. This is the day ordained by destiny to season his courage with those grievous thoughts, that if he breaketh out, Nestor's years on earth will make him savor still of this exploit.
Oh, but he shall not live to see those days.
Why then his epithet is lasting praise.
Yet, good my lord, 'tis too much wilfulness to let his blood be spilt that may be saved.
Exclaim no more, for none of you can tell whether a borrowed aid will serve or no. Perhaps he is already slain or ta'en, and dare a falcon when she's in her flight, and ever after she'll be haggard-like. Let Edward be delivered by our hands, and still in danger he'll expect the like. But if himself redeem from thence, he will have vanquished cheerful death and fear, and ever after dread their force no more than if they were but babes or captive slaves.
Oh, cruel father. Farewell, Edward, then.
Farewell, sweet prince, the hope of chivalry.
Oh, would my life might ransom him from death.
But soft. Methinks I hear the dismal charge of trumpets' loud retreat. All are not slain, I hope, that went with him. Some will return with tidings, good or bad.
Oh, joyful sight! Victorious Edward lives!
Welcome, brave prince!
Welcome, Plantagenet.
First, having done my duty as beseemed, lords, I re-greet you all with hearty thanks, and now behold, after my winter's toil, my painful voyage on the boisterous sea, of wars, devouring gulfs and steely rocks, I bring my fraught unto the wished port. My summer's hope, my travel's sweet reward, and here with humble duty I present this sacrifice, this first fruit of my sword, cropped and cut down even at the gate of death, the king of Boheme, father, whom I slew, whom you said had entrenched me round about, and lay as thick upon my battered crest as on an anvil with their ponderous glaives, yet marble courage still did under prop, and when my weary arms with often blows like the continual laboring woodman's axe that is enjoined to fell a load of oaks began to falter, straight I would recover my gifts you gave me in my zealous vow, and then new courage made me fresh again, that in despite I carved my passage forth and put the multitude to speedy flight. Lo, this hath Edward's hand filled your request, and done, I hope, the duty of a knight.
Aye. Well, thou hast deserved a knighthood, Ned, and therefore with thy sword, yet reeking warm with blood of those that fought to be thy bane. Arise, Prince Edward, trusty knight at arms, this day thou hast confounded me with joy and proved thyself fit heir unto a king.
Here is a note, my gracious lord, of those that in this conflict of our foes were slain. 11 princes of esteem, 80 barons, 120 knights, and 30,000 common soldiers. And of our men, 1,000.
Our God be praised! Now, John of France, I hope thou knowest King Edward for no wantonness, no lovesick cockney, nor his soldiers' jades. But which way is the fearful king escaped?
Towards Poitiers, your noble father, and his sons.
Ned, thou and Audley shall pursue them still. Myself and Derby will to Calais straight, and there be girt that haven town with siege. Now lies it on an upshot, therefore strike, and wistly follow while the game's on foot. What pictures this?
A pelican, my lord, wounding her bosom with her crooked beak, that so her nest of young ones might be fed, with drops of blood that issue from her heart. The motto, sic et vos, and so should you.
For scene 1.
My lord Salisbury, since by our aid mine enemy Sir Charles of Blois is slain, and I again am quietly possessed, in Britain's dukedom know that I resolve, for this kind of furtherance of your king and you, to swear allegiance to his majesty, in sign whereof receive this coronet, bear it unto him, and with all of mine oath, never to be but Edward's faithful friend.
I take it, Mountfort. Thus, I hope, ere long, the whole dominions of the realm of France will be surrendered to his conquering hand. Now, if I knew but safety how to pass, I would to Calais gladly meet his grace, whether I am by letters certified, yet he intends to have his host removed. It shall be so, this policy will serve. Ho, who's within? Bring Villiers to me. Villiers, thou knowest thou art my prisoner, and that I might for ransom, if I would, require of thee 100,000 francs, or else retain and keep thee captive still. But so it is that for a small charge thou mayest be quit, and if thou wilt, thyself. And this it is, procure me but a passport of Charles the Duke of Normandy, that I, without restraint, may have recourse to Calais through all the countries where he hath to do, which thou mayest easily obtain, I think, by reason, I have oft heard thee say, he and thou were students once together, and then thou shalt be set at liberty. How sayest thou, wilt thou undertake to do this?
I will, my lord, but I must speak with him.
Why so thou shalt? Take horse and post from hence. Only before thou goest, swear by thy faith that if thou canst not compass my desire, thou wilt return my prisoner back again. And that shall be sufficient warrant for me.
To that condition I agree, my lord, and will unfeignedly perform the same.
Farewell, Villiers. Thus once I mean to try a Frenchman's faith.
Since they refuse our proffered league, my lord, and will not ope their gates and let us in, we will entrench ourselves on every side, that neither victuals nor supply of men may come to succor this accursed town. Famine shall combat where our swords are stopped.
The promised aid that made them stand aloof is now retired and gone another way. It will repent them of their stubborn will, but what are these poor ragged slaves, my lord?
Ask what they are. It seems they come from Calais.
You, wretched patterns of despair and woe, what are you, living men or gliding ghosts crept from your graves to walk upon the earth?
No ghosts, my lord, but men that breathe a life far worse than is the quiet sleep of death. We are distressed, poor inhabitants that long have been diseased, sick and lame, and now, because we are not fit to serve, the captain of the town hath thrust us forth, that so expense of victuals may be saved.
A charitable deed, no doubt, and worthy praise. How do you imagine, then, to speed? We are your enemies in such a case. We can no less but put ye to the sword, since when we proffered truce it was refused.
And if your grace no otherwise vouchsafe, as welcome death is unto us as life.
Poor silly men, much wronged and more distressed. Go, Darby, go and see they be relieved. Command the victuals be appointed them, and give to every one 5 crowns apiece. The lion scorns to touch the yielding prey, and Edward's sword must fresh itself in such as wilful stubbornness hath made perverse. Lord Percy, welcome. What's the news in England?
The Queen, my lord, comes here to your grace, and from her highness and the Lord Vice-Regent I bring this happy tidings of success. David of Scotland, lately up in arms, thinking belike he soonest should prevail, your highness being absent from the realm, is by the fruitful service of your peers and painful travel of the Queen herself, that, big with child, was every day in arms, vanquished, subdued, and taken prisoner.
Thanks, Percy, for thy news with all my heart. What was he took him prisoner in the field?
Esquire, my lord, John Copeland is his name, who, since entreated by her majesty, denies to make surrender of his prize to any but unto your grace alone, whereat the queen is grievously displeased.
Well, then we'll have a pursuivant dispatched to summon Copeland hither out of hand, and with him he shall bring his prisoner king.
The queen, my lord herself, by this at sea, and purposeth as soon as wind will serve to land at Calais and to visit you.
She shall be welcome, and to wait her coming I'll pitch my tent near to the sandy shore. I believe a captain of Calais has arrived.
Who seems to be muted.
And as he's talking now, the burgess of Calais, mighty king, have by our council willingly decreed to yield the town and castle to your hands upon condition it will please your grace. To grant them benefit of life and goods.
They will so. Then belike they may command, dispose, elect, and govern as they list. No, sirrah. Tell them, since they did refuse our princely clemency at first proclaimed, they shall not have it now, although they would. I will accept of naught but fire and sword. Except, within these 2 days, 6 of them, that are the wealthiest merchants in the town, come naked, all, but for their linen shirts, and each a halter hanged about his neck, and prostrate, yield themselves upon their knees to be afflicted, hanged, whatever I do please, and so you may inform their masterships.
Why is this? It is to trust a broken staff. Had we not been persuaded, John our king, would with his army have relieved the town. We had not stood upon defiance so, but now 'tis past that no man can recall, and better some do go to rack them all. I wonder, Villiers, what thou shouldst importune me for one that is our deadly enemy.
And not for his sake, my gracious lord, so much am I become an earnest advocate, as that thereby my ransom will be quit.
Thy ransom, man. Why needst thou talk of that? Art thou not free? And are not all occasions that happen for advantage of our foes to be accepted of and stood upon?
No, good my lord, except the same be just. A prophet must with honor be commixed. Rare actions are but scandalous. But letting pass these intricate objections, will please your highness to subscribe or no?
Villiers, I will not, nor I cannot do it. Salisbury shall not have his will so much to claim a passport how it pleaseth himself.
Aye, then I know the extremity, my lord. I must return to prison whence I came.
Return. I hope thou wilt not. What bird that hath escaped the fowler's gin will not beware how she's ensnared again? or what is he so senseless and secure that having hardly passed the dangerous gulf will put himself in peril there again?
Ah, but it is mine oath, my gracious lord, which I in conscience may not violate, or else a kingdom should not draw me thence.
Thine oath? Why, that doth bind thee to abide. Hast thou not sworn obedience to the prince?
In all things that uprightly he commands, but either to persuade or threaten me not to perform the covenant of my word is lawless, and I need not to obey.
Why is it lawful for a man to kill and not to break a promise with his foe?
To kill, my lord, when war is once proclaimed, so that our quarrel be for wrongs retained, no doubt is lawfully permitted us, but in an oath we must be well advised how we do swear, and when we once have sworn not to infringe it, though we die therefore. Therefore, my lord, as willing I return, as if I were to fly to paradise.
Stay, my Villiers. Thine honorable mind deserves to be eternally admired. Thy suit shall be no longer thus deferred. Give me the paper. subscribe to it, and therefore, and wheretofore I loved thee as Villiers, hereafter I'll embrace thee as myself. Stay, and be still in favor with thy lord.
I humbly thank your grace. I must dispatch and send this passport first unto the Earl, and then I will attend your highness' pleasure.
Do so, Villiers. And Charles, when ye have need, be such as soldiers, whosoever ye speed.
Come, Charles, and arm thee. Edward is entrapped. The Prince of Wales is fallen into our hands, and we have compassed him. He cannot escape.
Will your highness fight today?
But what else, my son? He's scarce 8,000 strong, and we are 70,000 at the least.
I have a prophecy, my gracious lord, wherein is written what success is like to happen us in this outrageous war. It was delivered to me at Cresses Field by one that is an aged eremite there. When feathered fowl shall make thine army tremble and flintstones rise and break the battle ray, then think on him that doth not know dissemble, for that shall be the hapless dreadful day. Yet in the end thy foot thou shalt advance as far as England as thy foe in France.
This it seems we shall be fortunate, for as it is impossible that stone should ever rise and break the battle ray, our airy fowl make men in arms to quake, so it is like we shall not be subdued, or say this might be true, yet in the end, since he doth promise we shall drive him hence, and forage their country as they have done ours, by this revenge that loss will seem the less. And by all our frivolous fancies, toys, and dreams, once we are sure we have ensnared the son, catch we the father after how we can.
Scene 4.
Audley, the arms of death embrace us round, and comfort have we none save that to die we pay sour earnest for a sweeter life. At Cressy Field our clouds of warlike smoke choked up those French mouths and dissevered them. But now their multitudes of millions hide, masking us toward the beauteous burning sun, leaving no hope to us but sullen dark, and I less terror of all night.
Sudden, mighty, and expedient head that they have made, fair prince, is wonderful. Before us in the valley lies the king, vantaged with all that heaven and earth can yield, his party stronger battled than our whole. His son, the braving Duke of Normandy, hath trimmed a mountain on our right hand up, in shining plate, that now the aspiring hill shows like a silver quarry, or an orb, aloft the which the banners, baronets, and new replenished pendants cut the air and beat the winds, that for their gaudiness struggles to kiss them on our left handles. Philip, the younger issue of the king, coating the other hill in such array that all his gilded upright pikes do seem straight trees of gold, the pendant leaves and their device of antique heraldry, quartered in colors seeming sundry fruits, makes it the orchard of the Hesperides. Behind us too, the hill doth bear his height, for like a half moon opening but one way, it rounds us in. There at our backs are lodged the fatal crossbows, and the battle there is governed by the rough Chatillon. And thus it stands, the valley for our flight. The king binds in, the hills on either hand are proudly royalized by his sons, and on the hill behind stands certain death in pay and service with Chatillon.
Death's name is much more mighty than his deeds. Thy parceling this power hath made it more, as many sands as these my hands can hold are but my handful of so many sands. than all the world, and call it but a power, easily ta'en up and quickly thrown away. But if I stand to count them sand by sand, the number would confound my memory, and make 1,000 millions of a task, which briefly is no more indeed than one. These quarters, squadrons, and these regiments, before, behind us, and on either hand, are but a power. When we name a man, his hand, his foot, his head, hath several strengths, and being all but one self, instant strength. Why, all this many hardly is but one, and we can call it all but one man's strength. He that hath far to go tells it by miles. If he should tell the steps, it kills his heart. The drops are infinite that make a flood, and yet thou knowest we call it but a rain. There is but one France, one king of France. That France hath no more kings, and that same king hath but the puissant legion of one king. And we have one. Then apprehend no odds, for 1 to 1 is fair equality. What tidings, messenger? Be plain and brief.
The King of France, my sovereign lord and master, greets by me his foe, the Prince of Wales. If thou call forth 100 men of name, of lords, knights, esquires, and English gentlemen, and with thyself and those kneel at his feet, he straight will fold his bloody colours up, and ransom shall redeem lives forfeited. If not, this day shall drink more English blood than e'er was buried in our British earth. What is the answer to his proffered mercy?
This heaven that covers France contains the mercy that draws from me submissive orisons, that such base breath should vanish from my lips to urge the plea of mercy to a man. The Lord forbid. Return and tell the king my tongue is made of steel, and it shall beg my mercy on his coward burgonet. Tell him my colors are as red as his, my men as bold, our English armies as strong. Return him my defiance in his face.
I go.
What news with thee?
The Duke of Normandy, my lord and master, pitying thy youth is so ingirt with peril, by me he hath sent a nimble jointed genet, as swift as ever that yet thou didst bestride, and therewithal he counsels thee to fly, else death himself hath sworn that thou shalt die.
Back with the beast unto the beast that sent him. Tell him I cannot sit a coward's horse. Bid him today bestride the jade himself, for I will stain my horse quite o'er with blood, and double gild my spurs, but I will catch him. So tell the capering boy, and get thee gone.
Edward of Wales, Philip the second son to the most mighty Christian king of France, seeing thy body's living date expired, all full of charity and Christian love, commends this book full fraught with prayer to thy fair hand, and for thy of life entreats thee that thou meditate therein and arm thy soul for her long journey towards. Thus have I done his bidding and return.
Herald of Philip, greet thy lord from me. All good that he can send, I can receive. But thinkst thou not the unadvised boy hath wronged himself in this far tendering me? Happily he cannot pray without the book. I think him no divine extemporal. Then render back this commonplace of prayer, to do himself good in adversity. Besides, he knows not my sin's quality, and therefore knows no prayers for my avail. Ere night his prayer may be to pray to God, to put it in my heart to hear his prayer. So tell the courtly wanton, and be gone.
I go.
How confident their strength and number makes them. Now, Audley, sound those silver wings of thine, and let those milk-white messengers of time show thy times, learning in this dangerous time. Thyself art busy, and bid with many broils and stratagems, forepast with iron pens, are texted in thine honorable face. Thou art a married man in this distress, but danger woos me as a blushing maid. Teach me an answer to this perilous time.
To die is all but common as to live. The one in choice, the other holds in chase. For from the instant we begin to live, we do pursue and hunt the time to die. First bud we, then we blow, and after seed, then presently we fail. And as a shade follows the body, so we follow death. And if we hunt for death, why do we fear it? If we fear it, why do we follow it? If we do fear, how can we shun it? If we do fear, with fear we do but aid the thing we fear, to seize on us the sooner. If we fear not, then no resolved proffer can overthrow the limit of our fate. For whether ripe or rotten, drop we shall, as we do draw the lottery of our doom.
Good old man. 1,000 armors these words of thine has buckled on my back. What an idiot hast thou made of life, to seek the thing it fears, and how disgraced the imperial victory of murdering death. Since all the lives his conquering arrow strikes, seek him, and he not them, to shame his glory. I will not give a penny for a life, nor half a halfpenny to shun grim death, since for to live is but to seek to die, and dying but beginning of new life. Let come the hour when he that rules it will, to live or die, I hold indifferent.
Scene 5.
Sudden darkness hath defaced the sky. The winds are crept into their caves for fear. The leaves move not. The world is hushed and still. The birds cease singing, and the wandering brooks murmur no wonted greeting to their shores. Silence attends, some wonder, and expecteth that heaven should pronounce some prophecy. Where or from whom proceeds this silence, Charles?
Our men with open mouths and staring eyes look on each other as they did attend each other's words, and yet no creature speaks. A tongue-tied fear hath made midnight hour and speeches sleep through all the waking regions.
But now the pompous sun in all his pride looked through the golden coach upon the world, and on a sudden hath he hid himself. And now the under earth is as a grave, dark, deadly, silent, and uncomfortable. Hark, what a deadly outcry do I hear.
Here comes my brother, Philippe.
Oh, dismayed, what fearful words are those thy looks presage?
Philippe, please, tell us.
Prince?
Prince, do not be afraid to speak. Or maybe someone can speak for the prince.
A flight
A flight.
Coward, what flight? Thou liest, there needs no flight.
A flight.
Awake thy craven powers and tell on the substance of that very fear indeed, which is so ghastly printed in thy face. What is the matter?
A flight of ugly ravens do croak and hover o'er our soldiers' heads and keep in triangles and cornered squares, right as our forces are in battle. With their approach there came this sudden fog, which now hath hid the airy flower of heaven and made at noon a night unnatural. Upon the quaking and dismayed world, in brief, our soldiers have let fall their arms and stand like metamorphosed images, bloodless and pale, one gazing on another.
Aye, now I call to mind the prophecy, but I must give no utterance to a fear. Return and hearten up these yielding souls. Tell them the ravens, seeing them in arms, so many fair against a famished few, come but to dine upon their handiwork and prey upon the carrion that they kill. For when we see a horse laid down to die, although not dead, the ravenous birds sit watching the departure of his life. Even so, these ravens, for their carcasses of those poor English that are marked to die, hover about. And if they cry to us, 'tis but for meat that we must kill for them. Away and comfort up my soldiers, and sound the trumpets, and at once dispatch this little business of a silly fraud.
Behold, my liege, this night in 40 more, of whom the better part are slain and fled, with all endeavor sought to break our ranks, make their way to the encompassed prince. Dispose of him as please your majesty.
No, And the next bow, soldier, that thou seest, disgrace it with his body presently. For I do hold a tree in France too good to be the gallows of an English thief.
My Lord Normandy, I have your pass and warrant for my safety through this land.
Villiers procured it for thee, did he not?
He did.
And it is current, thou shalt freely pass?
Aye, freely to the gallows to be hanged without denial or impediment. Away with him!
I hope your highness will not so disgrace me and dash the virtue of my sealed arms. He hath my never broken name to show, corrected with this princely hand of mine, and rather let me leave to be a prince than break the stable verdict of a prince. I do beseech you, let him pass in quiet.
Thou and thy word lie both in my command. What canst thou promise that I cannot break? Which of these twain is greater infamy, to disobey thy father or thyself? No, thy word nor no man's may exceed his power, nor that same man doth never break his word that keeps it to the utmost of his power. The breach of faith dwells in the soul's consent, which if thyself without consent to break, thou art not charged with the breach of faith. Go hang him, for thy license lies in me, and my constraint stands the excuse for thee.
What, am I not a soldier in my word? Then, arms, adieu, and let them fight that list. Shall I not give my girdle from my waist, but with a guardian I shall be controlled to say I may not give my things away? Upon my soul, had Edward, Prince of Wales, engaged these words, writ down his noble hand, for all your knights to pass his father's land, the royal king to grace his warlike son would not alone safe conduct give to them, but with all the bounty feasted them and theirs.
Drillest thou on precedence? Then be it so. Say, Englishman, of what degree thou art.
An earl in England, though a prisoner here, and those that know me call me Salisbury.
Then Salisbury, say whither thou art bound.
To Calais, where my liege King Edward is.
To Calais, Salisbury, then to Calais back, and bid the king prepare a noble grave to put his princely son Black Edward in. As thou travellest westward from this place, some 2 leagues hence there is a lofty hill, whose top seems to topless for the embracing sky, doth hide his high head in her azure bosom, upon whose tall top, when thy foot attains, look back upon the humble vale beneath, humble of late, but now made proud with arms, and thence behold the wretched Prince of Wales, hooped with a bond of iron round about. After which sight to Calais spur amain, and say the prince was smothered and not slain. And tell the king this is not all his ill, for I will greet him ere he thinks I will. Away, be gone. The smoke of but our shot will choke our foes, though bullets hit them not.
Scene 6.
Fails your grace. Are you not shot, my lord?
No, dear Artois, but choked with dust and smoke, and stepped aside for breath and fresher air.
Breathe in, and do it again. The amazed French are quite distracted with gazing on the crows. There are quivers full of shots. Again, your grace should see a glorious day of this. Oh, for more arrows, lord. That's our want.
Courage, Artois. A fig for feathered shafts when feathered fowls do bandy on our side. What need we to fight and sweat and keep a coil when railing crows outscold our adversaries? Up, Artois. The ground itself is armed. Fire containing flint. Command our bows to hurl away their pretty colored yew, and to it with stones. Away, Artois, away. My soul of prophecy, we win the day.
Our multitudes are in themselves confounded, dismayed, and distraught. Swift starting fear hath buzzed a cold dismay through all our army, and every petty disadvantage prompts the fear-possessed abject soul to flee. Myself, whose spirit is steel to their dull lead, what with recalling of the prophecy, and that our native stones from English arms rebel against us, find myself attainted with strong surprise of weak and yielding fear.
Fly, father, fly! The French do kill the French. Some that would stand, let's drive at some that fly. Our drums strike nothing but discouragement. Our trumpets sound dishonor and retire. The spirit of fear that feareth not but death cowardly works confusion on itself.
Look at your eyes and see not the day's shame. An arm hath bathed an army, one poor David hath with a stone foiled 20s of Goliaths. Some 20 naked starveling with small flint hath driven back a puissant host of men, afraid of fenced and all accomplishments.
Mon Dieu, they quail at us and kill us up no less than 40,000 wicked elders have 40 lean slaves this day stoned to death.
Oh, that I were some other countryman this day had set derision on the French, and all the world will blurt and scorn at us.
What? Is there no hope left?
No hope but death to bury our shame.
Make up once more with me the 20th part of those that live. Our men is now to quail the feeble anvil on the adverse part.
And charge again. If heaven be not opposed, we cannot lose the day.
On, away.
How fares my lord?
Even as a man may do that dines at such a bloody feast as this.
I hope, my lord, that is no mortal scar.
No matter if it be, the count is cast, and in the worst ends but a mortal man. Good friends, convey me to the princely Edward, that in the crimson bravery of my blood, I may become him with saluting him. I'll smile and tell him that this open scar doth end the harvest of his Audley's war.
Scene 7.
Now, John in France, and lately John of France, thy bloody ensigns are my captive colors, and you, high-vaunting Charles of Normandy, that once today sent me a horse to fly, are now the subjects of my clemency. Fie, lords, is it not a shame that English boys, whose early days are yet not worth a beard, should be in the bosom of your kingdom thus? 1 against 20 beat you up together?
Thy fortune, not thy force, hath conquered us.
An argument that heaven aids the right. See, Artois doth bring with him along the late good counsel giver to my soul. Welcome, Artois, and welcome Philip too, who now of you or I have need to pray. Now is the proverb verified in you, too bright a morning breeds a lowering day. But say, what grim discouragement comes here? Alas, what 1,000 armed men of France have writ that note of death in Audley's face? Speak thou that wooest death with thy careless smile, and look so merrily upon thy grave, as if thou wert enamored on thine end. What hungry sword hath so bereaved thy face, and locked a true friend from my loving soul?
O Prince, thy sweet bemoaning speech to me is as a mournful knell to one dead sick.
Dear Audley, if my tongue ring out thy end, my arms shall be the grave. What may I do to win thy life or to revenge thy death? If thou wilt drink the blood of captive kings, or that it were restorative, command a heath of king's blood, and I'll drink to thee. If honor may dispense for thee with death, the never-dying honor of this day share wholly, Audley, to thyself, and live.
Victorious Prince, that thou art so, behold a Caesar's fame in king's captivity. If I could hold dim death but at a bay till I did see my liege, thy loyal father, my soul should yield this castle of my flesh, this mangled tribute with all willingness to darkness, consummation, dust, and worms.
Cheerily, bold man, thy soul is all too proud to yield her city for one little breach. Should be divorced from her earthly spouse by the soft temper of a Frenchman's sword. Lo, to repair thy life, I give to thee 3,000 marks a year in English land.
I take thy gift to pay the debts I owe. These two poor esquires redeemed me from the French with lusty and dear hazard of their lives. What thou hast given me, I give to them. And as thou lovest me, Prince, lay thy consent to this bequeath in my last testament.
Renowned Audley, live and have for me this gift twice doubled to these esquires and thee. But live or die, what thou hast given away to these and theirs shall lasting freedom stay. Come, gentlemen, I will see my friend bestowed within an easy litter, then we'll march proudly toward Calais with triumphant pace unto my royal father, and there bring the tribute of my wars. Fair France, his king.
Act 5, Scene 1.
No more, Queen Philippa, pacify yourself. Copland, except he can excuse his faults, shall find displeasure written in our looks. And now unto this proud resisting town. Soldiers, assault! I will no longer stay to be deluded by their false delays. Put all to sword and make the spoil your own.
Mercy, King Edward, mercy, gracious Lord.
Contemptuous villains, call ye now for truce. Mine ears are stopped against your bootless cries. Sound, drums, alarum, draw threatening swords.
Noble prince, take pity on this town and hear us, mighty king. We claim the promise that your highness made. The 2 days' respite is not yet expired, and we are come with willingness to bear what torturing death or punishment you please, so that the trembling multitude be saved.
My promise? Well, I do confess as much, but I require the chiefest citizens and men of most account that should submit. You, peradventure, are but servile grooms or some felonious robbers on the sea whom apprehended law would execute, albeit severity lay dead in us. No, ye cannot overreach us thus.
The sun, dread lord, that in the western fall beholds us now, lo, brought through misery, did in the orient purple of the morn salute our coming forth when we were known, or may our portion be with damned fiends.
If it be so, then let our covenant stand. We take possession of your town in peace, but for yourselves, look you for no remorse. But as imperial justice hath decreed, your bodies shall be dragged about these walls, and after feel the stroke of quartering steel. This is your doom. Go, soldiers, see it done.
Be more mild unto these yielding men. It is a glorious thing to establish peace, and kings approach the nearest unto God by giving life and safety unto men. As thou intendest to be king of France, so let her people live to call thee king. For what the sword cuts down or fire hath spoiled is held in reputation none of ours.
Although experience teach us this is true, that peaceful quietness brings most delight when most of all abuses are controlled. Yet, in so much it shall be known that we, as well, can muster our affections as conqueror other than by the dint of sword. Philippa, prevail. We yield to thy request. These men shall live to boast of clemency, and tyranny strike terror to thyself.
Long live your highness. Happy be your reign.
Now go, get you hence, return unto the town, and if this kindness hath deserved your love, then lend to reverence Edward as your king. Now might we hear of our affairs abroad. We would, till gloomy winter were o'erspent, dispose our men in garrison a while. But who comes here?
Copland, my lord, and David, King of Scots.
Is this the proud, presumptuous esquire of the north that would not yield his prisoner to my queen?
Oh, I am, my liege, a northern esquire indeed, but neither proud nor insolent, I trust.
And what moved thee then to be so obstinate to contradict our royal queen's decree?
No willful disobedience, mighty lord, but my desert and public law at arms. I took the king myself in single fight, and like a soldier would be loath to lose the least preeminence that I had won. And Copeland, straight upon your highness charge, is come to France, and with a lowly mind doth veil the bonnet of his victory. Received, red lord, the custom of my fraught, the wealthy tribute of my laboring hands, which should long since have been surrendered up, had not but your gracious self been there in place.
But, Copeland, thou didst scorn the king's command, neglecting our commission in his name.
His name I reverence, but his person more. His name shall keep me in allegiance still, but to his person I will bend my knee.
I pray thee, Philippa, let displeasure pass. This man doth please me, and I like his words. For what is he that will attempt great deeds and lose the glory that ensues the same? All rivers have recourse unto the sea, and Copeland's faith relation to his king. Kneel, therefore, down. Now rise, King Edward's knight. And to maintain thy state, I freely give 500 marks a year to thee and thine. Welcome, Lord Salisbury. What news from Brittany?
This, mighty king, the country we have won, and Charles de Montfort, regent of that place, presents your highness with this coronet, protesting true allegiance to your grace.
We thank thee for thy service, valiant earl. Challenge our favor, for we owe it thee.
But now, my lord, as this is joyful news, so must my voice be tragical again, and I must sing of doleful accidents.
What? Have our men the overthrow at Poitiers, or is our son beset with too much odds?
He was, my lord, and as my worthless self with 40 other serviceable knights under safe conduct of the Dolphin Seal did travail that way, finding him distressed, a troop of lances met us on the way, surprised and brought us prisoners to the king, who, proud of this and eager of revenge, commanded straight to cut off all our heads. And surely we had died, but that the Duke, more full of honor than his angry sire, procured our quick deliverance from thence. But ere we went, "Salute your king," quoth he. "Bid him provide a funeral for his son. Today our sword shall cut his thread of life. And sooner than he thinks we'll be with him, to quittance those displeasures he hath done." This said, we passed, not daring to reply. Our hearts were dead, our looks diffused and wan. Wandering at last, we climbed unto a hill, from whence, although our grief were much before, yet now to see the occasion with our eyes did thrice so much increase our heaviness. For there, my lord, oh, there we did descry down in a valley how both armies lay. The French had cast their trenches like a ring, and every barricado's open front was thick embossed with brazen ordnance. Here stood a battle of 10,000 horse, there twice as many pikes in quadrant wise. Here crossbows and deadly wounding darts, and in the midst, like to a slender point within the compass of the horizon, as 'twere a rising bubble in the sea, a hassel wand amidst a wood of pines, or as a bear fast chained unto a stake stood famous Edward, still expecting when those dogs of France would fasten on his flesh. Anon, the death-procuring knell begins. Off go the cannons that with trembling noise did shake the very mountain where they stood. Then sound the trumpets' clangor in the air, the battles join, and when we could no more discern the difference twixt the friend and foe, so intricate and dark confusion was, away we turned our watery eyes with sighs as black as powder fuming into smoke. And thus, I fear, unhappy have I told the most untimely tale of Edward's fall.
Me, is this my welcome into France? Is this the comfort that I have looked to have when I should meet with my beloved son? Sweet Ned, I would thy mother in the sea had been prevented of this mortal grief.
Content thee, Philippa. 'Tis not tears will serve to call him back if he be taken hence. Comfort thyself, as I do, gentle queen, with hope of sharp, unheard, of dire revenge. He bids me to provide for his funeral, and so I will. But all the peers in France shall mourners be, and weep out bloody tears until their empty veins be dry and sere. The pillars of his hearse shall be their bones, the mold that covers him their city's ashes, his knell, the groaning cries of dying men, and in the stead of tapers on his tomb, 150 towers shall burning blaze while we bewail our valiant son's decease.
Rejoice, my lord, ascend the imperial throne. The mighty and redoubted Prince of Wales, great servitor to bloody Mars in arms, the Frenchman's terror and his country's fame, triumphant rideth like a Roman peer, and lowly at his stirrup comes afoot King John of France, together with his son in captive bonds, whose diadem he brings to crown thee with, and to proclaim thee king. Away with Philip, wipe thine eyes, sound trumpets, welcome in Plantagenet.
As things long lost when they are found again, so doth my son rejoice his father's heart, from whom even now my soul was much perplexed.
Be this a token to express my joy, for inward passion will not let me speak.
My gracious father, here receive the gift, this wreath of conquest and reward of war, got with as much peril of our lives as e'er was thing of price before this day. Install your highness in your proper right, and herewithal I render to your hands these prisoners, chief occasion of our strife.
So, John of France, I see you keep your word. You promised to be sooner with ourself than we did think for, and 'tis so indeed. But had you done it first as now you do, how many civil towns had stood untouched that now are turned to ragged heaps of stone? How many people's lives mightst thou have saved that are untimely sunk into their graves?
Edward, recount not things irrevocable. Tell me what ransom thou requires to have.
Oh, thy ransom, John, hereafter shall be known. But first to England thou must cross the seas to see what entertainment it affords. Howe'er it falls, it cannot be so bad as ours hath been since we arrived in France.
Accursed man, of this I was foretold, but did misconstrue what the prophet told.
Now, father, this petition Edward makes, to thee whose grace hath been his strongest shield, that as thy pleasure chose me for the man to be the instrument to show thy power, so thou wilt grant that many princes more bred and brought up within that little isle may still be famous for like victories. And for my part, the bloody scars I bear, the weary nights that I have watched in field, the dangerous conflicts I have often had, the fearful menaces were proffered me, the heat and cold, and what else might displease, I wish were now redoubled 20-fold, so that hereafter ages when they read the painful traffic of my tender youth might thereby be inflamed with such resolve, as not the territories of France alone, but likewise Spain, Turkey, and what countries else that justly would provoke fair England's ire, might at their presence tremble and retire.
Here, English lords, we do proclaim arrest, an intercession of our painful arms. Sheath up your swords, refresh your weary limbs, peruse your spoils, and after we have breathed a day or two within this haven town, God willing, then, for England will be shipped, where in a happy hour I trust we shall arrive, 3 kings, 2 princes, and a queen.
End.
Fini, well done, well done. Thank you all. Thank you all very much.
Bravo, bravo.
Great
Cool.
job.
George Bernard Shaw wrote a little skit based on the Six of Calais.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not very long. But it's you know, and it's more humorous than serious. But unfortunately, we can't do it because it falls within the copyright area of his stuff. So that's an interesting little piece.
But so it refers to what? The six who give themselves up, or?
Which
Yeah.
six?
Yeah, but who are freed then, of course.
Yeah, that's great. All right, thank you so much, Sean. This was great. So, yeah, it is a rich source of English history, and I love that also the fact that with the English, that part of how the English won, which you don't get either in this play or in Henry V, but the way they had these great victories over the French was because of archers, and that at Cressy Field it was the English archers that did it. And then again, the same thing happened at Agincourt. You know, that the French didn't learn that the English archers were more than a match for the supposedly superior armor and armaments of France.
Yeah.
So,
Is that what they meant by ravens and fog?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. Oh, I guess I should stop the. Is there anything before I end the live stream anybody else wants to say about the play or?
I just want to thank everyone for helping to do this and present it.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's always a little bit of work to do these, but it's giving back.
We loved every minute. It was fabulous.